I just got home from the ALGS, and while I was there, I had an exciting opportunity to chat with two of the lead designers over at Respawn Entertainment and to ask some of the burning questions that we all have about the game. Let's dive into it.
I'm Eric Canavis. I am the weapons and loot lead on Apex. So anything that is weapon related or loot related kind of comes through my team. We design them, we build them, we playtest them, we iterate on them, and then any like seasonal balance with the weapons and that loot, we sort of decide and talk amongst ourselves and kind of put that out for everybody.
I'm Josh Mohan, the lead game designer for World Systems. My team deals with things that are out in the world, so the ring, dropship, things like bins, AI, any mechanic that players run around and encounter in the world.
Okay.
I would say between the two of us, we pretty much do all of the core gameplay stuff, like the moment-to-moment gameplay, except for Legends.
Except for the Legends.
Yeah.
Okay. That's really cool. So then you were doing weapons as well.
Yeah, weapons is one of my major focuses.
That's your major focuses. Okay. So I actually had a question for you about weapons. What has been the biggest challenge for you to balance?
Well, like which weapon?
Yes.
Which weapon? Well, they're all very unique. Every weapon has its own personality, and like when we're balancing a weapon, it's really important that whatever we do still, it's still within the personality that we've set out from the beginning, because we want each weapon to be unique and to fill a purpose. But I would say the weapon that has been one of the biggest challenges to keep in that category would probably be the Kraber.
Okay.
When we've tuned it in the past, and we brought its one-shot potential down, but we still wanted it to be there sometimes. So getting the right cadence for that while still making it feel like, we got to pick up the Kraber. Like, you don't leave a Kraber in the package. You still need to take it. We still want it to be super impactful, but we wanted to try to make it a little bit fair, especially like in the late game, and value the gearing up that you would do over the course of the game. So we're always looking at it, we're always monitoring it, trying to make sure that it's in a healthy spot, but that was a hard decision to take the one shot away from it, like across the board.
I bet. Was there like a lot of public pressure? Does that impact you at all, how the community reacts to changes, or do you just steamroll ahead and do your own thing?
It absolutely impacts. Like, we're always listening to the community. It's very important for us to understand what people are talking about, understand the narratives and the conversations that are happening out in the world. And we talk about it every week. Like, I have an hour-long meta sync every week with my designers, and we're looking at Twitter posts, we're reading the Reddit, we're there, we're lurking, we're watching. Yeah. And it's always a part of the conversation. This is what people like, this is what they don't like, these are the the friction points or the pain points that people are having, and we try to work that into our stuff. But we're always thinking about the overall health of the game. We have to come at it from, that's just one of many angles that we have to try to approach, balancing weapons and meta. Speaking
of the public pressure, has it ever made you feel like, or even made you go back on a change you made in the past?
That's a good question. I don't think it's ever specifically, I've been like, we need to make this change because the community's breathing down our neck or something like that. No. But it has been like the reason we've started talking about something, which might bring into light, maybe we could adjust it in this way because there is so much heat around this specific thing. But we try not to let just that one sort of data point drive our decision making. Like I said, we kind of have to come at it from many angles, and that is just one of them.
Okay, heat shields, they're still in ranked. Some people are not super happy about what's happening currently. Is that something you guys are maybe looking into, like to change that or tune it, or what's the conversation like?
Yeah, totally. I mean, falling under loot, that's also maybe an Eric thing, but I can speak to the ring.
Yeah, to the ring,
and changes we made there. I think what you're seeing with the heat shield and how it's behaving in ranked is we're seeing it more like how it behaves in ALGS. And it's partly because of the rank changes we made, where people are now incentivized to place higher than just get kills. Yeah. So we're seeing them use it, maybe abuse it, there's a reason why it's not in ALGS, because people feel they could use it to just sustain outside the ring for super long time. So we're definitely looking at the ring and therefore how the heat shield operates to try to create a more fair sort of situation for all players, because ultimately it's not intended that you play outside the ring for a long time, but you still need to have a grace period, and that's what the heat shield provides you. So we're probably going to have to make some changes at some point to make the game reflect that intent a bit more.
I actually have a question about the ring specifically. And now I know things have changed again because of the heat shields. Like now it's a bit more forgivable to be outside of the ring. But this is something I've been thinking about a lot, so I actually do want to ask about it. Why is it that you take aim punch coming into the ring?
It's again leading into this design philosophy that we're not trying to encourage gameplay outside of the ring.
Right.
So we call it flinch, but if you weren't taking flinch outside the ring, it would encourage fights outside the ring and people just like staying and fighting and really doing all their normal gameplay things outside the ring, which is really, you can stay a little bit outside the ring, but you should always be encouraged to be getting back into zone.
In my notes I wrote AI, but I did not mean ChatGPT. I was wondering, are we going to see more NPC style things in the game in the near future, or are there any plans on incorporating that maybe in future maps?
I mean, we're experimenting with all sorts of things now that we have the wildlife system set up and IMC Armory set up in Tropics. You know, for now those belong as a large part of the identity of that map. We've experimented with other things, but we've also found that it doesn't work as well universally as a system as it maybe seems like it should. You know, looking at games like Tarkov, where you're like, oh, it's kind of a BR with AI, but extraction shooters just have their own set of incentives for players around meta progression, whereas battle royales are at their heart a PvP game. So trying to strike that balance where AI is a fun add without being a distraction is a tough line to walk. So we're definitely experimenting with lots of different stuff, but I won't say like, oh, 100% one way or the other on that.
Oh no, that's fine.
Yeah.
No, that's really cool to hear. What are the odds that we're getting more Titanfall weapons in the game?
Oh, I can't talk about that.
You cannot talk about that.
Can't talk about future
No
weapons.
odds.
That's insane.
Yeah.
All I'll say is that Titanfall represents a very potent well for us. So
Right.
we're always thinking about Titanfall. Like, we're in the Titanfall universe, so
Yeah.
it's always on the table. We use it as a source of inspiration all of the time. We're always thinking about it. So it's like, I can't say whether or not we're going to bring more Titanfall
That's
weapons,
fine. Yeah.
but like, we respect it. We love it. It's a part of our DNA. So we're always thinking about it.
Have you considered removing the Kraber from the care package?
Oh, I've considered it. Like, I've thought about everything. We probably won't. What the Kraber represents is like a power weapon fantasy. And if you were to just take the Kraber out of the care package, we would have to tune it in a way where it kind of is balanced like a floor weapon.
Yeah.
And a floor version of the Kraber is awfully similar to a Sentinel.
Yeah.
So the gameplay there, we've already got a floor version of that. So as much as we've thought about doing that, there's not a whole lot of bang for buck there, and then we would lose one of the most exciting crate weapons that you could come across.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So it doesn't seem very good for the game, and what we have right now, the setup that we have between the Sentinel and the Kraber, it works. So we'll probably try to keep that in place.
Okay. Then speaking of care package weapons, I think I read there was a patch note or whatever somewhere that said you guys felt happy with the bow being in the care package, and I'd agree. It does seem to really have found its place there. But what about ammo? The ammo type, arrows as an ammo type.
Yeah, that's one of the major reasons why the bow entered the crate, and it's been in there for a long time. I say crate because that's what we talk about internally,
Right,
but the
yeah.
care package, it entered the care package, and one of the major reasons was to sort of clean up the ammo game.
Yeah.
Because arrows only going on one weapon, it doesn't do us any favors in the loot pool.
No.
Because you come across ammo, you can't use it for any other weapon. So putting it in the crate allowed us to, it was like a pressure release valve for the ammo and to find ammo that you need.
Yeah.
We're fairly happy with it in the care package, and if we do ever bring it out of the care package, we would likely revisit arrows and try to come up with a better meshing way for it to work in the ammo economy.
What are your thoughts on the 30-30 at the moment? Because that has been getting a lot of hype lately.
Yeah, this has actually been coming up a lot this weekend.
Yeah.
The 30-30 I love. I love the 30-30. Is one of my babies. Is one of the weapons that I designed. So I'm biased, and that I'm super excited that it's seeing a lot of play right now, especially in the high level. And when we're balancing weapons and we're designing weapons, especially across many seasons and many metas, it's really important to us that some weapons can bubble up to the top and have some time in the spotlight, and it's not just 301s every game for every player. So that is something that we're really excited to see, is that these weapons that are sort of like downplayed for a long time, they kind of find their way and work their way up into the meta, and then we let them shine. Like, we want them to have some fun, we want them to have a lot of play, and then we'll revisit it, right? Maybe we'll bring some other weapons up in the meta to make it feel fresh and exciting again. Maybe we'll nerf it. I probably won't nerf it. I'll probably find other ways to work with hop-ups, give other weapons hop-ups, just natural and organic ways that we can be shifting around the meta that still feels fun, that still feels healthy.
Have you ever noticed that you might have had a gun that was really good. Like on paper, you know this thing is great, but the players just don't use it.
Oh yeah, all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like we have access to the data, right?
Right.
Like we know everything about these weapons. And there was, and I'll say something, and there'll be plenty of people that are like, oh no, we always knew that was really strong. But like when you look at the data, when you look at the usage rates, like across the board,
Right.
there are weapons like the Prowler, for example. Like
yeah.
everybody slept on the Prowler, and there was no way we could buff the Prowler because internally we know that thing that thing rips. Like it is going to dominate. And it just takes the right people to get their hands on it, the right controllers to start using it and start talking about it, like in professional settings, where players are going to see that and they'll be like, oh, actually, the Prowler is goated. We have to run the Prowler. And so we know this all the time. And even the 30-30, like, there's a reason that the damage on the 30-30 has never changed.
Right.
Because the 30-30 was always a good weapon. It was always a balanced weapon. But there were other things that were just like, but this other weapon just kind of does it better right now. But as those things ebb and flow, it makes room for things like the 30-30 to come up. So yeah, we're always aware of that. There's weapons now that players aren't using that on paper they should probably be using, and they'll figure that out. It'll come to the top. And then
you don't want to share that.
No, I'm not,
leaving it to us.
Yeah, you guys figure it out.
Yeah. I actually wanted to ask about the devotion specifically.
Sure.
Obviously you can't share then the numbers, but what is like the deal with the devotion and just LMGs in general? Because personally, I've never been a fan. I've seen some people go, oh well, yeah, the damage per second is really high at the very end, right? But it's got the whole ramp up thing. It doesn't really feel super good. Are there maybe any plans to change it at some point, or?
I can't talk about any specific plans to change it, but the devotion is always on our radar. Like we're always thinking about the devotion, and the devotion's it's kind of very unique in that once it has the turbocharger, it represents an insane powerhouse. Like it is a very, very strong gun with the turbocharger, and it's actually, we kind of call it an Exodia weapon, where you have to find all of the pieces, and once you have all of the pieces, the devotion it pops off. It's like so good. But you need the barrel, you need the magazine, you have to have the turbocharger.
Exactly.
And we like that. It's actually pretty important for us to have those sort of like questy type guns. So it's like, if I get all the pieces, I'm going to be a powerhouse. And there was a time, like before we nerfed the turbocharge, we took like 1 damage off of the bullet damage when you put the turbo on. At that point, the devotion in its Exodia form was topping the charts. It was actually a problem. It was so good. But it kind of took so long for people to get there, we were okay with that for a while. But eventually, we did need to bring it down a little bit. But with that being said, we're always monitoring it, we're always thinking about it. We're actively having discussions about LMGs in particular. Like, what are LMGs' roles in the game? What do they bring to the table that assault rifles don't, or SMGs don't? We're trying to come up with, impactful and meaningful ways to introduce something to LMGs to make them feel a little bit more exciting. Can't talk about anything specifically, but it's certainly on our radar.
I can add something to that actually, because I think the Devo and the turbocharger is a good example of moments where Eric and I, our kind of worlds overlap and we cooperate on stuff, because when we're making new, let's say, things in the game like IMC armories that give out loot or assault bins, new ways to get loot in the game and new mechanics, sometimes the rewards are also, are really high tier loot. And if we give players sometimes more too guaranteed a way to get the Exodia pieces to assemble the Devo, that can feel imbalanced. And so that's one way that Eric and I try to align on, okay, well, I'm trying to do this, you're trying to do this, we're trying to solve our various problems with the tools we have, but sometimes those can create conflicts, and we have to cooperate on all right, cool, okay, well, we're going to specifically try to lower the spawn chance of this item here because it has this impact on your team. So just remember the turbocharger in the Armory conversation early on when we launched it. It was like a guaranteed way where you're looking in the data, you're like, why is everyone getting turbochargers?
It was everywhere,
all of a sudden it's like, oh, we're giving you a guaranteed way to get it for whatever, a few weeks, and then we patched it.
Oh, I actually have a question. Speaking of IMC armories, then, because I love them, and as some people watching might know, I am as far as I know the sole record holder in soloing the Armory for the golden ball.
Oh, nice.
But where is the golden ball now? Why did you remove it? Was it too strong?
Yeah, that's something where we felt like we wanted to add this, tantalizing, clear all 10 waves, super reward, and just one of those situations where it's hard to gauge how often that's going to happen, based on the skill level of our players, based on the massive, audience, and we put it out there basically not expecting people to clear, not expecting someone to do it solo. So that was just a situation where, sometimes you kind of have a guess, you have a theory, internally, and then you ship it, and then that theory gets tested by reality, and sometimes you're right, sometimes you're wrong. And that was one where we felt we had miscalibrated a little bit on how difficult it was to get to 10 waves. We talked about a lot of different solutions. Can we keep it? Can we extend the waves? Can we make them harder? But ultimately we felt, as I said before, being a PvP game, AI shouldn't be a challenge. They shouldn't be the thing that kills you. Another player should be the thing that kills you.
Yeah.
So we felt the difficulty was in a good place, but we needed to tamp the rewards down a little bit.
Yeah, well, I wanted to ask about digital threat, because that's been a hot topic very recently.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess, what are your thoughts on it in its current state?
Yeah, the Digi is an ebb and flow, and it is often tied to the Legends ebb and flow, and so Bangalore is really hot right now. Having Bangalore being a primary Legend means the Digi threat's going to become even more relevant, because it cuts right through that smoke. It's tough. We don't want to remove it from the game, because what it represents is a strong upgrade, a very important chase item for all those CQC weapons. I don't know. I don't know what to say about it, really.
Do you think it's in a good state?
It's tough. Again, because kind of the relevancy of it depends on the Legend meta that's coming into play. So if we make a big change to the digital threat right now, and the Legend meta changes next week, then we've nerfed something that is no longer even relevant. And it's one of those things where it's kind of binary in its power, right? It's either on or it's off. And we could do things like tune the distance in which the digital thread, turns on, but ultimately that's just going to make it feel worse and be less useful in those situations. So I think what we really want to be doing is thinking of more things like the digital threat to come in and sort of challenge the digital threat's place in the meta. So I can't talk about anything specifically, but it's like, I think it's in a good spot because it's useful, it's desirable, it's fun, but there are definitely questions about maybe it's a little bit too sharp right now because of the Legend meta that has arisen.
That's fair.
So it's something we talk about. It's something that, again, we're always monitoring. We're trying to make the healthiest decisions, but that's one of those ones where it's sort of been in the game forever, and we want to make sure that we don't just dumpster it because of a specific moment in time.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. I spoke to some people before last night, actually, and I was told to ask you about Fuse.
Okay.
I don't know if there's anything there that you have to share.
Fuse holds a very special place in my heart. Before I was working on weapons, I had the privilege of working on some Legend ideas, and Fuse was one of the ones that I had the opportunity to design. So I came up, me and writers and some other designers, we all worked together to sort of make Fuse and build his background and his personality, and I got to work on some of his abilities before I had to hand him off. And Wally is his launcher on his bag, and my father's name is Walter, and so there's a connection there, and why Fuse is so personal for me, and I was able to get a little bit of my dad in there, and he's got a big mustache, so and I'm Australian as well, so there's just there was just ways for us to really bring ourselves into these characters, and we're always looking for ways that we can have some connections or ties to the game. Not that everything is some relation to our real life thing, but it was a fun thing because we decided we wanted to make him Australian, and there was this opportunity there.
Does he have any connections to the 3030 as well? Fuse and the 3030, or?
Well, when I ended up handing Fuse off, the 3030 was sort of the thing that I went on to next. So we were building that season around long-range harassing. Fuse was this long-range harasser with his kit, and I was like, I'm going to make a long-range weapon as well, with the 3030, so let's try to see what we can tie them together. So the 3030 is from Salvo, it's a Salvonian weapon, and Fuse obviously from Salvo. So there's ties there. There's sort of this package when we put all of that stuff out in Season 8.
Okay. I think it was in the splash art holding the 3030 as well.
Yeah. I think he's got the special draw when he's got it. Yeah.
A lot of dialogue.
Yeah, the writers were really cool, and they added extra dialogue for that.
Okay, I have one here, and you're free to not answer, but I am curious. What weapons would you love to add, but you can't because of gameplay mechanics, or it would disrupt the game flow too much, or something like that?
There's some weapons that we've talked about, like beam weapons. A straight beam. It's
a laser.
Like a laser, like a laser weapon. And if you'll notice, we just took out our laser weapon because hit scan is not the healthiest thing in our game. So we've often thought about what would like a laser weapon look like, shorter range, sustained laser, ramping damage, something like that. But ultimately, we feel like hit scan, like Apex is not the game for hit scan. No. So it's a cool idea. We've had lots of really cool concepts for those sorts of lasers or beam weapons. But we do think it'd just be too disruptive to the gameplay. It doesn't lean into the skill set that comes with playing Apex. So we've sort of just pivoted away from that style of weaponry.
Okay. And I guess speaking of which, then, are there any ideas that you've scrapped that were like really cool or interesting that you could share, of course?
Sure. We have prototyped a lot of stuff and not released a lot of it. There was a very early prototype that we had for a shotgun where all of the pellets would bounce around. So the idea would be like you could like peek into a window and pump a few shotgun shots in, and then it would just be like ricocheting shotgun pellets in the entire building, like clear out a place. And we found that it doesn't feel great to get hit by a weapon and you cannot see the person shooting it.
Yeah.
So this is like, you need to be able to target and like have a line of sight to who you are fighting. So that was a really cool idea, but ultimately it just doesn't align with the pillars and the strengths of like what Apex is.
Okay.
Sorry, I think the battery died, so stopped recording halfway through that.
Oh no! Halfway through the whole thing?
Oh no, through this answer.
Oh,
okay. I heard the shutter close.
Yeah, you heard the.
You heard the shutter close. That's fine. I got that one on voice.
Oh,
that's perfect.
Got
and
it
you also have
too.
the spare
Yes.
voice, and we got everything.
wow.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank you so much for this interview. We were shaking hands right now.
Yes, this is a good handshake.
Good handshake.
Very
Nice to
firm.
meet you. Nice to meet you too.